started my career at the CIA as a little intern that budded into an analyst. John Brennan was the director at the time, and what's playful about this note is it's actually what every young employee wants. A note from their director telling them how amazing they are at their job, right? But the funny thing about it is it has absolutely nothing to do with what I was paid to do at the CIA, which was write papers. It's all about how I brought feeling and emotion to the song America the Beautiful at an inner event that we had to honor fallen employees. So there was sort of a hint of this isn't your normal employee, right? If you're getting these handwritten notes from the director about nothing having to do with what you get paid for, we might have an uncommon career ahead of us. That took me to Nashville, Tennessee. I resigned from the agency, I moved to Nashville and did what singer-songwriters do, shoot music videos on motorcycles. But I had this sort of sense that not everything was coming to fruition for me in Nashville in sort of the box of just singer-songwriter. So I ended up taking a job, moving to New York City, and leading an organization called Gen Next that wanted to ask the question of what does it look like to encourage leaders to think about future generations from the angles of economic development, education reform, and national security. So I had this job as a CIA analyst, and I was really good at the front of a room hosting events and connecting people, and so they gave me this opportunity. And we did some very fascinating things. I'm not sure if anybody has ever dealt with teachers unions. This is Randy Weingarten, who ran the American Federation of Teachers for many years. We have Fabien Cousteau, the grandson of Jacques Cousteau. He was talking to us about underwater space stations, basically, like the future of underwater life. Larry Silverstein, here in the corner, bought the World Trade Towers in 2001. He was the person who owned the property, and the only reason, if you've gone downtown and seen the beautiful way that these new World Trade Towers are built up and that whole downtown development, is the result of this gentleman and his choice to stay as a billionaire instead of take the insurance money and leave. So we did all these different things. I don't know if Katie can see it in the corner. We did an event with Tad Smith at Sotheby's before the sale of the Basquiat. It was an amazing experience, and what it showed me was it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire or you run Sotheby's or you are a teachers union person or you're David Brooks or you're living at Sing Sing National Security Prison. Everybody has a creative spirit. And it was my creative spirit as an artist in all of these rooms that I had absolutely no idea what I was doing in that actually helped me bring the value. And as I moved to Winston-Salem in 2021, I started artistic leadership with a couple of core beliefs. So everyone is creative. And the thing about beliefs is they should be debatable, right? It's good if somebody disagrees. So everyone is creative. Creativity sparks curiosity. Curiosity leads to connection. And connections unlock human potential. So these beliefs, which found everything that I do through the signature team building that I offer both locally and nationally, are really mined from my personal human experience, from the journey that I've been on, through all these pictures that we clipped through, right? But they're also based on research. They're based on the library, the books, the things that I've consumed as an avid reader, which the agency taught me how to read and distill and put my hand on something gray and rough and say, is it an elephant? Is it sandpaper? Is it a concrete slab? It could be any of those things. All you have is a few pieces of information, right? So stay humble and stay curious. That's the work of the CIA analyst. So if you are a reader and you haven't read these books, you don't own them, take a picture of this. It's an amazing beginning resource of creativity and connection is something of interest to you. I would say the one that is the newest that I think is particularly salient right now is Your Brain on Art. This just came out in the last year and a half. It's about the neuroscience of art. And basically, what are we learning through the deepening and enriching of the neuroscience discipline about what happens to our brains when we both consume art and make art. And it's by somebody at MIT and somebody at Google Design Lab. So really interesting book. But all of this reading, basically as a little artist, creative spirit, gives me that research that I need to feel like I have some giants to lean on to make a hypothesis about your topic of focus right now, equity. What might a singer-songwriter, team builder, CIA analyst have to say about equity? Well, I have a hypothesis to throw out to the room, which is always intimidating when everybody is more established, has been in the city longer, and is probably older than me. So I'll throw it out and let's see if the story that I have to back it up helps it come to life. If you unlock the creative spirit, you unleash equity. This is my hypothesis. I have 3 case studies, all local, because I can honestly say that after having lived in Moscow, Russia, like we were talking about, having lived in New York, Nashville, LA, DC, Chicago, Austin, all over, the reason I'm in Winston-Salem is because I have experienced the creative spirit being unleashed here in a very dynamic way through these 3 organizations, actually all with funding from the Arts Council through ARPA. So let's go. So Authoring Action, we have a couple people. Tim was saying that he was at an event that I sang at. We have had many friends in the room through the years through Authoring Action. So I was playing a show at the West-Salem Public House randomly, just my own concert. And I had sold tables as a way of marketing and making more money than a single ticket, right? We'd sell a picnic table, a donor would buy it. The culture of donors in Winston's really amazing. So this one gentleman bought the table, brought 6 of his friends, and 2 of those friends were Nathan Ross Friedman and Lynn Rhodes. And they didn't know who I was. They had never heard of my music. It was a patron who bought the table that brought them to this concert in the back of the West-Salem Public House, right? Lynn comes afterwards up to me and says, we do this thing called the Summer Intensive with Authoring Action, and we'd love to have you come and be a collaborating artist. Would you be interested? And I was just in the process of founding Artistic Leadership and pitching a collaborative songwriting modality to companies to build their teams, because companies have money. And so I was like, how do I do something in the corporate world? And she said, well, we would you have a little stipend, but it's with kids. And I was like, well, that sounds even more scary than adults at a corporation. Like, I don't know if I can do that. And Nathan said, like, you have it. You have what you need to do this work with us. You have the soul. And I was like, all right, well, let's go. So that summer, I worked with this group of kids. Raquel's holding her hands up like this. They taught me that their creative spirit was as potent and powerful as mine, as Nathan's, as Lynn's, as their parents, as the audience. Their willingness to have their creative spirit unlocked through the process unleashed equity. If you have ever been to an Authoring Action thing, you feel like you are the student as the adult and the child is the teacher, because they're so tapped in to who they really are still. And like Picasso says, we're all born creative. We just forget how to be artists as we grow up. And the kids in Authoring Action and the grants and the donors and the power behind through the system of the city that has empowered that organization for over 20 years to do this work taught me the way that I am just one of these kids. And actually, I'm really honored that they would play with me, that they would share with me, that they would create with me. Case study number 2, the dwelling. So, does anybody know what the dwelling is? A couple people know what the dwelling is? All right, that's awesome. So, the dwelling has been around for quite a while, right? It's a collaboration of the Moravian Church and the Lutheran Church. It's over on the corner across from the auto mechanic spot over on Broad and 6th. I had never been there. I was in town for a couple years, had never heard of it, but Authoring Action got an ARPA grant to collaborate with the dwelling to bring the Authoring Action modality of monologue development to the congregants of the dwelling. So a lot of the people at the dwelling have housing insecurity as a part of their human experience. Not everybody, but quite a few of the people. And at your church, if you go to one, you probably bring some metaphorical baggage with you, maybe a metaphorical suitcase of your, stuff. They might bring a real one. Like, it's a real specific worship environment, and there's a lot of different places of life that people are at. But at the end of the day, the creative spirit is there in every single one of those people. And the authoring action collaboration with the dwelling through the ARPA grant created the opportunity for us to work with these monologue writers and turn their stories into songs. Zay was my first one. So that's the first moment that we ever sang together. Just a seed. We ended up taking it to the main stage. This is one of the groups. This was the first. We're in round 3 of the ARPA grant. It was a 2-year engagement. And each one of these people has had the chance to have their creative spirit unleashed, and they are the teachers. People who you might pass by on the street corner. They are the teacher. They are the artists. They are the creative illumination of the city, because they are given the opportunity to have their creative spirit unleashed and then shared with people. All it takes is just the unlocking. And all of a sudden, the whole room, we're not having a conversation about DEI there. We are just being creative spirits. And it levels the entire room. It's unbelievable. Case study number 3, the compound. Also an ARPA grant. Let's hear it. I love it so much. All right, so the compound is over on West 4th Street, across from that new park. This is the brainchild of 3 people. So Alec was a lawyer and a finance guy. Monty is like a marketing creative in town, and Spencer, he's a poet. And the 3 of them have different dreams that are all sort of like happening around the same thing. What would it look like if we had a space in the city where creatives got to come together, tell their stories, have all the resources that like the big agencies have, but they could do it for like $70 a month, and you get like a Mac, you get a green screen, you get a whole recording studio, and you have a place where you can bring people together, and then maybe you can even have like companies come in there. So the compound exists. This is around the corner. You could walk there today and check it out and go through its halls and learn about the creative spirit getting unleashed. If you go there on a Thursday night, they have some sort of a program every Thursday that is literally one of the most diverse rooms you will ever experience in this city. It is so fascinating. Does anybody have a record player? Anybody have a record player? Okay, a couple of you. They do a thing called dig and sip, where you dig into crates and you pick out a vinyl and you take it home. You can learn about that later. All of these are taking us to a place of unleashing the creative spirit. And at Artistic Leadership, these are the 3 levels that I guide teams through, whether it's a kid in authoring action, whether it's a team doing a corporate team building at the compound, or whether it's the dwelling. We believe that it all starts with the individual. At the individual level, if you have the time and the space to allow your inner self to have some reflection and to be able to say, like, I have something to contribute here, just me. Just little old me in this room, all these big CEOs. I have something to contribute. You have to start there. Then you get a chance to move out from there. I need to do that in community, in a small group, in a communal environment that's warm and safe and has trust and has experimentation and has play. And then the 3rd level, which is often what we want to jump to, because that's where the ROI seems to be on the metrics and the reports, is the collective. We want to prove it to everybody else by putting it on a stage. Now that's really important. That's why all these different things that I talked about have public engagements as a part of what they do, because it's the collective level where you really experience like risk and reward. But you can't get there unless you unleash the creative spirit at these other 2 levels. There's 2 modalities that I lead, particularly with artistic leadership, though you could do it in many ways. One is called Harmony Hubs, and so I use the process of collective songwriting to unleash creativity and foster equity at companies through writing a song together. If we had another 2 hours, we could do it right now. And we would write a song about why you're a member of the Rotary Club. And we would do the same thing. We would start with personal reflection. You'd work with your table to come up with some verses and share your stories, and then we'd ladder it up, and I would sing you the song from the stage with a brand new melody that's based off of your words. And let me just tell you, it takes you to flow, all right? It is a high when you create like that with a bunch of people you kind of know. All of a sudden, they feel like best friends. The second thing is kintsugi, which is the Japanese art of mending broken teaware with gold. The process that I do is a contemporary approach that sort of uses the general arc as a metaphor. So with like a company, we start with a tile, we break it, it shatters like the top picture over there, and then everybody puts it back together, and it becomes an artifact of resilience and your own story of leadership through the broken fissures of your life. And this is also a coaster. That's kind of fun. This is the hypothesis, right? If you unlock the creative spirit, you unleash equity. I only have a couple of stories that are local. I only have a couple of ways of doing it. I'm not sure, it could be disproven over time. But I believe this to be true. And I think that the case studies and the books and the life lived show me that it is something that's actually possible. And if Picasso does say that every child is an artist, and the problem is how to remain one, then the question is, where are the leaders? Where are the leaders helping us unleash the creative spirit instead of only optimizing and making sure things run smoothly all the time? Let's get a little messy with unleashing the creative spirit. David White, an amazing poet, wrote a book called The Heart Aroused, Poetry and the Preservation in the Soul of Corporate America. And he says, for all their emphasis, these corporations, on the bottom line, they are adrift from the very engine at the center of a person's creative application to work. They cultivate a workforce unable to respond with personal artistry to the confusion of global market change. Because we've neutered the ability to actually unleash the creative spirit at work because it's a little messy, it's a little artsy, it's a little bit untamed, one might say. But what if that's actually what the leaders have always shown us? Winston Churchill was a painter. The gold medal diver from Great Britain, Tom, he's a knitter. We got, Einstein was a great violin player. Condi Rice is an amazing concert pianist. And Warren Buffett, he's a great ukulele player. It's like one of his favorite things. So I have a provocation and an ending. What resources could you allocate to help unlock the creative spirit in your community, team, company, and unleash equity? This is the question that would be great for this brain trust to think about. And so as to not leave you with a question and not some resources, artistic leadership is here. And I lead it, but I'm always bringing in artists around the city. This is the .com, that's my email. Thank you so much.